Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX World. Let's take a quick look at the headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump says he will impose an additional 50% tariff on China if they do not remove their retaliatory tariffs. In response, China says it will fight to the end and censures the escalation as blackmail. European markets open higher and major Asian markets make gains following days of losses in the wake of Donald Trump's tariffs. Trump's higher tariffs on about 60 countries he is deemed as the worst offenders are due to take effect from tomorrow. The US and Iran will hold direct talks over possible nuclear deal on Saturday, saying Donald Trump. On the contrary, Iran's foreign minister also confirms the meeting, but claims the talks will be indirect. A species of wolf believed to have died out 12,500 years ago is now claimed to be the world's first successfully de-extinct animal. According to scientists, biotech company Colossal says it has created 3 pups using ancient DNA cloning and gene editing technology. Tech billionaire and Tesla CEO Elon Musk made unsuccessful appeals to President Donald Trump to reverse tariffs over the weekend. The Washington Post reports the dispute marks their highest profile clash to date. The US Supreme Court temporarily halts a judge's order requiring the Trump administration to return a Salvadorian man deported in error. The government had been ordered to bring him back to the US by the end of the day. In a visit to Washington, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu meets with President Donald Trump to discuss tariffs, Iran and the Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Netanyahu is the first world leader to visit Donald Trump since his Liberation Day tariffs. South Korea's government confirms a June 3rd date for a presidential snap election following the removal of Yoon Suk Yeol. The cabinet agrees on the date after discussions with the National Election Committee. Global markets have been in a state of turmoil since Trump's Liberation Day tariffs came into effect on the 2nd of April. Trump has defended the tariffs, calling them medicine and warning foreign governments they would need to pay heavily to lift them, even as many come forward in search of compromise. Asia-Pacific stocks from Shanghai to Tokyo and Sydney to Hong Kong plunged on Monday by levels not seen in decades as global markets continue to reel from US President Donald Trump's tariffs. The Shanghai Composite was down more than 8% at one point. Hong Kong's Hang Seng dropped more than 13%, and Japan's Nikkei 225 closed down by 7.8%. Moves that reports described as a bloodbath in the markets. Stock markets across Europe also dropped sharply as the shockwaves were felt around the world. Meanwhile, US markets are bracing for their worst fall in nearly 40 years amidst rising fears of higher prices, weaker demand, and the risk of a global recession. Today, however, Asia-Pacific markets rose, rebounding from previous sessions' losses. Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 6.03%, while South Korea's Kospi rose 0.26%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index also climbed over 1.51%, and mainland China's CSI 300 rose 1.71%. Australia's S&P ASX 200 added 2.27%. and India's Nifty 50 increased by 1.6%. European markets also moved higher on Tuesday, reversing course from a 4-day losing streak fueled by tariff tensions. This comes after the European Union signaled its willingness to negotiate a tariff-free trade pact with the United States. The regional Stoxx 600 index was 2.6% higher at around 12:57 a.m. local time in London, with almost every sector in the positive territory. In fact, now the US markets have opened. I am being joined by associate producer of NewsX World, Rema Hans, to take us through the latest US market numbers. Rema, the United States markets have opened. What are the numbers for today looking like? Are they going to follow trends from the Asian and European markets of ending in the green today, or is it another day of red for the index?
Yes, Uday. In fact, we can see some signs of recovery in the US market. I would like to begin with Dow Jones. Here, you can see that the numbers have gone up significantly. Right now, it's gone up by 3.67% as we speak, which is about 1393.58 points. And moving on to S&P 500, it stands at about 5,256.62, which is about 3.84%. It's gone up by 3.84%, 194.37 points. NASDAQ, which is basically which reflects all the technology companies, it's at 16,281.66. It's gone up by 4.35%, which is about 678.48% pointers, and you can see that it's constantly changing as compared to the how badly it was hit following the Trump tariffs. It was, of course, as you rightly mentioned, it was a bloodbath. We can see that there are some signs of recovery in the markets in the United States. Before I wrap up, I would also like you to take you through the European markets. So if you look at DAX, the session is at about 20,393.22. It's gone up by 3.05%. There's of course some amount of recovery that we are noticing here, which is about 603.60 points. Moving on to CAC 40, it's gone up by 3.52%, which is about 240 points. Next is FTSE 100. It's gone up by 3.56%, which is about 274.40 points. And I would also like you to take you through the Indian market. If you look at Nifty 50, it's closed at 22,535.85%. 85, sorry. And Sensex, BSE Sensex closed at 74,227.08. Of course, this if we compare from the previous 2-3 days of the complete meltdown in the market, this is a clear sign of recovery. It's slowly recovering. US is of course seeing some significant numbers. As far as Europe is concerned, of course, this is also a slow amount of recovery, but it's of course there's some amount of recovery that we are seeing. India is also catching up, and Asian markets which were sort of badly hit. Back to you, Uday.
All right, Rema, thank you for joining us with those numbers. Now, let me also draw in Lord Rami Ranger, member of the House of Lords of the United Kingdom. He's joining us live from Dubai. Lord Ranger, what do you make of the way the markets have been reacted world over to the tariffs war that has erupted, of course, after the announcement by the US president? Do you believe the volatility has now ended with markets in the green today, or is it too soon to say?
It is too soon to say, but first of all, I must give you in a nutshell, this has made America weaker, not only politically, but also financially. Because as a leader of the free world, to start becoming isolationist, that sent a very wrong signal. And these tariffs have shaken the economy as never before in my life, because when the confidence disappears from the market, investors do not invest. There are so many repercussions, starting with unemployment, higher prices, and more companies will have different alliances now. They will go away from America. America has damaged its reputation, unpredictable country. There is a chance that many people will look to forge alliances, free trade agreement with someone they can rely on, someone they can protect. So therefore, it's a very, very big shock to the economy. It will have a lasting repercussion. You can imagine people who invested in Far East because of the low wage cost, low production cost, and suddenly they hit with 40, 50, 30% tariff. How will they feel? And so therefore, it's a black day for the world economy, black day for the World Alliance.
Right. Now, if we talk particularly about the United Kingdom and, the EU, where do you see that, the impact of these tariffs on trade of the US with EU and UK, of course, where you were elected from?
It will be very, very a big impact because, we rely on America for many things. And if those things become, we're already going through sluggish growth in Europe. We have a lot of other challenges, and this compounds the problem with another challenge from America, where the imports from USA or export to USA will become very, very expensive, and that is going to have effect on the currencies of the world, is going to have a lot of negative effect. And also, I must say, if somebody wants to score their own goal, President Trump has scored not only one, but many own goals, and they will manifest one by one. And, you'll see
Yes.
first country to be hit will be the America itself, because a lot
Yes.
of people...
Now let's talk about the stocks and the markets, Lord Ranger, because of course we're trying to focus on that. Lord, as far as the markets are concerned, we've seen, Asian indices rebound after the losses. Do you see some, silver lining then? Or do you believe there is going to be volatility in indices this week? We're believing that Dow Jones and NASDAQ also has opened in the green today. What about the UK markets? How have things been today?
Well, look, if something goes down, it comes up. But the proof of the pudding is when the exports start to take place, and if the exports are reduced, and then you'll see the effect of unemployment, recession, and higher prices. So it's too soon to judge because this has only happened recently. So therefore, I think I will reserve my judgment. But I'm suspicious that this will be a very big impact on the world economy, and especially the relationship with America of the free world.
All right, Lord Ranger, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on this big story. Moving on now, in recent updates, China further accused the United States of pressure, threats and blackmail after US President Donald Trump floated additional tariffs of 50% on China. China has urged the United States to show some respect and adopt an attitude of equality, respect and mutual benefit for meaningful talks following President Trump's initiation of a trade war with broad tariffs. China also accused the U.S. of blatant disregard amidst the trade row, calling the U.S. Vice President ignorant over his peasant comment. Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian has warned that if the U.S. persists in its tariff and trade war, China will continue to resist. China strongly opposes U.S. threats to escalate trade tensions, with President Trump's tariff threats pushing global markets into turmoil. Chinese manufacturers struggled with rising costs and price negotiations. Despite growing concerns, Trump defended his tariffs as necessary for U.S. economic renewal. Amidst financial volatility, global leaders, including Elon Musk, urged the U.S. to reconsider, while Trump's advisor dismissed Musk's suggestions. Markets feared lasting economic consequences from the trade war. Let's listen in to what Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Lin Jian had to say.
中方对中美经贸关系的立场已经讲得很清楚了。听到这位副总统说出这样无知又缺乏礼貌的话，令人诧异，也感到悲哀。
Mika Pickus, foreign affairs expert, is joining us live from Washington. Mika Pickus, as far as, of course, this standoff between the United States and China is concerned, where do you see it headed? Do you believe there will be any concessions by either side, or do you see it escalating further in the days ahead?
It's a great question. I think it's kind of hard to tell. I think both sides are sort of locked in a game of chicken, where it's going to be a question of which one decides to sort of sidestep the on-rushing car first. We know Trump can be very stubborn about things, but the Chinese have also made their position on this quite clear. And I think the sort of sad fact of the matter is that there are a lot of other countries, India being one of them specifically, that are going to get caught up in this. There are going to be ripple effects that reverberate throughout the global economy. It's just hard to say what those are going to be specifically. It all depends on, which side backs down first, if at all.
Yes, absolutely. Also, I have to ask you then, Mika Pickus, about, the effects that all of this is happening, the effects that all of this is having on other world markets. How do you believe, this escalation between the United States and China, in trade? They are the world's two largest economies at the end of the day. What kind of impact is this going to have on the rest of the world?
I think it's going to have an outsized impact. I think a lot of countries, regardless of where they sort of stand in the global order, are trade partners with both US or China, maybe one more than the other. But I look at places like Japan, I look at countries like Kazakhstan and Central Asia. I look at, you've got Pacific Island nations. I mean, everybody is going to feel this in some way, shape, or form. I'm actually quite interested in seeing what the situation will be for India, because as I see it, there is sort of a ongoing debate as to whether the US, China, or a rising India is going to become the world's biggest market for trade and investment. And I think Trump is grossly underestimating the value and potential for specifically Asian and Southeast Asian markets for investment and growth. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think the likes of like Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, many of these countries have been hit by very, very high reciprocal tariffs relative to what they were taking in, certainly on a country-specific level, I mean. So it's hard to say, but I think there will be some degree of volatility, and it's only really going to settle down once the dust begins to settle. But once again, unclear how long that's going to take.
Mr. Pickus, thank you very much for joining us with your perspective on that story. Let's move on to more news coming in this hour. Countries are expressing concern about the economic and political fallout after US President Donald Trump imposed sweeping tariffs that shocked global markets last week. European Central Bank policymaker Yannis Stournaras has said that higher inflation and a global trade war following Trump's imposition of tariffs could delay normalization of the Eurozone monetary policy. Here's what he had to say.
Τυχόν νέα αναζωοποίηση του πληθωρισμού ή των πληθωριστικών προσδοκιών ενδέχεται να επιβραδύνει ή και να ανακόψει τη διαδικασία ομαλοποίησης της νομισματικής πολιτικής, επιδεινώνοντας τις χρηματοπιστωτικές συνθήκες αλλά και την αναπτυξιακή δυναμική. Η επιβολή δασμών στις εισαγωγές από μια χώρα θα επηρεάσει και τις άλλες χώρες που συμμετέχουν στις παγκόσμιες αλυσίδες αξίας, ακόμα και χωρίς την επιβολή δασμών.
Meanwhile, the European Union still wants to avoid a trade war with the United States despite Donald Trump's administration's rejection of the zero-for-zero offer on all industrial goods put forward by Brussels. Well, let's in fact listen in now to what the spokesperson of the European Commission, Olaf Gill, had to say.
We're in a sticky situation here. Things aren't getting better, they're getting worse. And we're trying to actively sit down with our American friends and say, let's make the situation better.
Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong has criticized the move as not actions one does to a friend, reflecting disappointment in the US stance. Let's listen in to what Wong, who's Singapore's Prime Minister, had to say.
We are very disappointed by the US move, especially considering the deep and long-standing friendship between our two countries. These are not actions one does to a friend. The likelihood of a full-blown global trade war is growing. Singapore has decided not to impose retaliatory tariffs. Doing so will only lead to increased costs for Singaporeans. But other countries may not be guided by the same considerations and may have different perceptions and views.
In Japan, Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba revealed he had personally urged Trump to reconsider the tariff policies. It's vital to preserve the free and open trade order, he told reporters in Tokyo. These reactions highlight growing international frustration with the Trump administration's aggressive trade stance. Joining us now live is Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President CDEPR. He's joining us live from New Delhi. Dr. Bhattacharya, do you believe there has been uniform global condemnation of these new tariffs imposed by the Trump administration? Or are there any countries who welcome it?
No, clearly I think it's evident that every single country is extremely uncomfortable, if not vocal, about the tariffs that the US administration has put in. Clearly it disrupts trade as we know it, and therefore along with trade, it disrupts our life as we know it. I think the sharp reaction from the stock markets with an absolute rout yesterday kind of demonstrates the impact of the tariffs. Even though there has been a slight recovery today, it's going to be a roller coaster for the stock market, given that there is still a significant amount of uncertainty in terms of what the US administration is planning to do, because the steps that they're taking were also quite unexpected. It was not clear that what the Trump administration had said will actually be followed through, and there will be actual trade tariffs put in, because the outcome of that was well known by all economists in the world. And hence, there is a lot of trust deficit that has grown because of the tariffs. And I doubt if there is any single country out there which is aligned to the increase in tariffs by the US government.
Dr. Bhattacharya, as far as, of course, now this issue is concerned, what do we expect in the next few days? Do you believe these negotiations will continue? Is the rigid approach of the Trump administration likely to also persist now? Or do you believe there can be some middle ground?
Insofar as I gather, based on feedback from various people across the world, there is already conversations going on between the Trump administration and the governments of major economies. So I believe that conversation is going to take things forward. We have also heard the president of the European Union saying that she is open to having a 0-0 reciprocal tariff. I think many of the large economies would be open to having a 0-0 reciprocal tariff, which essentially means that there will be no tariffs imposed by EU on American goods and vice versa. And that's a regime that others are trying to also follow. So that's the template that's evolving as we speak. So yes, there is a conversation going on. Perhaps the immediate tariffs are put in to precipitate these conversations, but only time can tell what really, which is the direction that we are really going towards.
Dr. Bhattacharya, thank you for joining us with your perspective on that story. Now, some news coming in this hour. At least 27 people have been killed after a roof collapsed at a nightclub in the Dominican Republic. Many more are injured, and rescue workers are still attempting to free people from the rubble. The cause of the incident is yet to be ascertained. And that's all we have time for on this particular edition of World Report. We'll continue to bring you more news and updates on NewsX World. Stay tuned.
ITV